Hello and welcome to another episode of This Week in Goldmaking, presented by Darkshorecapital. My name is Andrew, and let's get into the market update for the week. There's one big piece of information that's the most interesting on this page. You might have noticed it by now. It's the Starlight Rose, in particular on the European realms. I have a theory about the increase in price of this herb, and I think it has to do with our first item of news, the world first race. So the Starlight Rose is one of the components used to make Skystep potions, which is comprised of some Starlight Rose and an ancient rejuvenation potion. And it provides a significant speed boost to the user in place of a combat potion. And a lot of the guilds that are currently progressing on the final boss in the Battle for Dazara lore, Lady Jane Proudmoore, are making use of speed potions, either the Skystep or whatever the new one is from the current expansion, to speed up the first intermission transition period. And I believe that's what's caused the spike in Starlight Rose prices. 56 gold up from, I believe it was around 30-ish gold last week for, 131% increase week over week. So that's pretty substantial. Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to last because last time I saw, Method was not actually using these speed potions anymore for their world first progression in favor of more battle potions to give them more burst DPS in certain particular phases. But I digress. Maybe something you want to look into. Maybe you got some Starlight Rose laying around and you're on the European servers. Maybe now's a great time to dump them because, hey, the price just went up. Obviously, check your servers for specifics. Second piece of news. The PTR has some new stuff up on there, and the one thing that I thought was potentially interesting, if any of y'all are hunters, you might remember that there was some kind of a special mechanical pet that went along with the Beast Mastery hunter weapon. Apparently they're going to add a bunch of items to make Hattie, however you say it, more useful, or these are all, I believe, cosmetic situations, like an item to make the dog into a mount, or to let it play with a little ball or something. All a bunch of fun little toy things. And it's not clear based on the information available so far that this is going to be a profession deal, but I could very, very easily see this being an engineering item. So maybe something to keep an eye on. That's about all I got for the news this week. Yeah, world first race, consumables, new raid, typical stuff. Nothing too earth-shattering there. We've got a few Q&A questions here, and we're going to eschew any kind of a main feature today because a couple of these questions I want to go a little bit deep into. So let's get right into them. First question, do you think Blizzard is being too hard on draining the economy with gold sinks? Now, this, I believe, is in reference to a question that was posed in the World of Warcraft economy subreddit. Something along the lines of, are they doing an unofficial gold squish? Are we trying to get rid of inflation in the economy, etc., etc., etc. And I wanted to talk about this for two reasons. First of all, to give my answer to the question, and second of all, to address something, well, a little bit more of a core problem with the game and attitudes towards things without fully understanding them. So, first off, do I think that there's some big conspiracy to make everyone's lives harder with economy nonsense? No, I think that's quite silly. Pretty much all of the items or things discussed in this thread are what I would term luxury items in the World of Warcraft. Things like the $5 million mounts, expensive repairs. Okay, I don't know, that's a little ridiculous. Azerite reforging is a completely separate issue, which I don't think we need to get into here. It's more of a gameplay problem. And then heirloom upgrades. So really, the mount and the heirloom upgrades specifically here, maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but I feel like those are things that should be earned. And heaven forbid that in a role-playing game where this type of thing is just the genre, you ever have to work for anything that has a significant reward to it. I don't see a problem with this. So I think that this complaint and this argument is largely overblown and just people complaining. And honestly, there's a lot of entitlement going on here, and I don't want to just kind of throw that out there and blame it on the millennials or whatever, because this really actually drives at a more core issue with the game. 14 years ago, no one at all would question the fact that World of Warcraft was a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Emphasis on the role-playing game. You look back at a lot of the mechanics in the old days, hunter ammo, having to feed your pet, mages having to conjure water, you have to have reagents for any powerful spell like teleports or buffs for the entire group or combat reses, things like that. These are all role-playing elements. And over the years, a lot of these elements have been removed under the guise of quality of life improvements. Now, yeah, that improves the quality of life in that it makes the game easier, but it sort of loses the role-playing element of the game, which in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but now we're left with a game 14 years later that can't decide what it wants to be. I think you could find strong arguments on both sides of this fence for the game just needs to be about the gameplay. Like, let me just get a max level character and go raid and do all the stuff for skill. Like, look at the arena competitions. Look at Mythic Plus invitational things. The people competing in those are given templated, for all intents and purposes, characters. They're on equal playing field. Then on the other side of things, you want people that want that RPG element back. And I don't know. I think we might be too far gone down the quality of life wormhole, black hole, whatever you want to call it, to really pull that back. So I don't know if there's any hope left for the game. Oh, wait. Classic World of Warcraft comes out this summer. Just kidding. Everything's fine. We'll ditch me. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I do think that's a really big problem. It makes people feel entitled, and not in any way that's their own fault, because Blizzard keeps giving us quality of life improvements. Okay, we're going to end that rant. My answer to the question is no, I don't think this is a problem. Whatever. If you want something nice, you got to work for it. Deal with it. One of these comments I responded to, particularly egregious in my opinion, complaining about not being able to make gold. Here it is. Seriously, you have to do endless world quests now if you're a casual player not playing the auction house. Okay, one last point on this question. Don't have this attitude. Even if you're not a so-called goblin gold maker, right? You don't have to have this attitude. Like, gold making, this is one of the great things about this game. It's an equal playing field. All the information is there. Like, if you haven't watched this video that BreakVids made almost a year ago, more than a year ago, you need to go watch this. It's called Don't Work for Minimum Wage in WoW, which is, I know, kind of a ridiculous title, but man, this is a really good video. More than 5,932 people need to have watched this, because this is like, just drives at the core of a lot of problems with this statement of, seriously, you have to do endless world if you're a casual player not playing the auction house. I don't know. That attitude, you're not going to make gold if you have that attitude. So don't have that. Don't have that attitude. Next question. I'd like to hear how you judge saturation. How do you find your breakpoint for a market? It's a fantastic question, and particularly poignant because I'm in the midst of doing this myself with enchanting. So the question is basically asking, how much volume do you throw up on the auction house at any given time in order to maximize profits, right? Because if you throw up too much stuff, you just have things rotting on the auction house. It's not going to do you any good. You could even potentially flood the market so much that you could have damaging effects on your bottom line. So this is definitely something that doesn't have a hard and fast rule, and many, many variables change the answer in many different cases. Now, the only thing that is truly going to give you the most advantage when it comes to figuring out your saturation or your volume of posting is experience. You got to get out there and do it and figure it out. Things that you need to be considering are sale rate, which Tradesco Master gloriously provides for us and is a wonderful tool. You have the price itself. What's demand? Demand. You can look at sale rate for that. You can also look at other things like, okay, a raid just came out and people want to enchant the new gear they got, so enchants are probably going to be a little bit more popular right now. Okay, well, when do most people raid? Usually in the evenings towards the beginning of the World of Warcraft week, which is either beginning Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on your region. So you can take all these things into consideration, right? My advice is to start small and kind of work your way up. If you can get on and play during the primetime hours in the evening and be crafting a lot of things, just keep crafting stuff, keep putting it up, and if it sells, keep putting more stuff up, and just keep putting more stuff up until you get to a point where you aren't selling as much, and then kind of pull it back a little bit. And then do this for a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, month, 2, maybe even, and then use TSM's accounting information and just review the data, because that's really the only way you can get better, is reviewing what you've done. So I hope that answers the question, and more so than just trial and error, because that was my short answer to this question originally. But yeah, I'm currently in the process of doing that right now, kind of getting the enchanter set up to, do some enchanting stuff with BFA stuff as well as some older things. And we're just going to see how it goes. Making a lot of sales, so probably going to try and crank it up a little bit as I start making some more gold and can purchase more raw materials. Next question. How do some people get such big mailboxes in the 300 to 700,000 gold range in sales on low to medium pop realms? So if you're going to want big mailboxes, you need to have valuable items, because those are the things that tend to generate those big old mailboxes. Yes, you could try and just have a huge volume across tons and tons of different professions and things, but if you really like getting those large numbers, you're basically dealing with really, really high value products. Typically, this means BOEs, it means high value pets, things of that nature, TCG items, perhaps. And the caveat I will say, you might see screenshots of people, posting up their hashtag daily mailbox on Twitter, and they've got these crazy big mailboxes, and that might look super great in the moment, but what you don't understand is that behind the scenes, there's been so much time and effort that's gone into these mailboxes, because these people have lots of experience, been doing this for a long time, they've built up their stocks over a long time, and it's not like that every day, right? You don't sell the 425 maxed out leech BOE every single day. You gotta wait for the world first trader to come contact you and cross server transfer and blah 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 nonsense and broker a deal that way, right? Like, that doesn't happen every day. So you do this long enough, you learn it, you get into the high value flipping markets, that's where you start getting your big mailboxes. Lastly, I play on a high pop server and I only have 2 characters. What professions or ways would you recommend to make gold? So for me, the key to making gold long-term sustainable gold, where you're going to be, paying for tokens for the rest of your days, is to do something you enjoy. Because otherwise, what's the point? Like, don't forget, this is a game. You should be enjoying yourself, at least I would say 60% of the time, at a minimum. Like, that's a bare minimum. You should be enjoying yourself 60% of the time. So my advice and recommendation in this case is to scour the YouTube gold makers, scour the gold making websites, scour any gold making information you can, learn as much as you can about different techniques, whether it be farming, whether it be crafting, whether it be crafting current materials, whether it be crafting old world stuff, whether it be selling boosts, selling who knows what. Figure out everything you can possibly do, and just whatever really sparks your interest, go and try that and see if you can do it. Because if it's interesting and you enjoy it, that's what's going to make you the most gold long term, because it's what you'll stick with, and it's what you'll be inspired to do every day. It's what'll get you out of bed in the morning. And I mean that, because that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, checking my freaking auctions and reposting them and getting those fat 300, 700,000 mailboxes. With that, we're going to close out this week's episode of This Week in Gold Making. I want to thank everyone for listening and sticking through a bit of my rambly bits there on some of those questions. If anyone does have any opinions on those, I would be happy to discuss them. I do really think it is important, very, very important, to not let the sense of entitlement overtake your thinking. And I know that those words can be somewhat conflagratory, so please don't take offense to them. Let's have a good, nice, civil conversation about that stuff, because I do think it's important to talk about. So, without further ado, if you have any comments, questions, you can leave them below on the video, or you can find me on Twitter at darkshorecap, or if you prefer a more private conversation, my email address is darkshorecapital@gmail.com. That's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week.